So I'm here with a renowned conductor, I'd say I kind of icon of the wind band world, and somebody that I spent a few formative years getting the opportunity to play under, Eugene Corporon. Hello, welcome to the show.
Good to see you.
So we're using this episode as kind of a preview of the Midwest Clinic, and obviously as an alum and a publisher, I'm very excited for the performance, and I know many people are. The first question I wanted to ask you about this particular performance is if you could kind of tell us how much your experience with the Midwest Clinic has changed over time, kind of dating back to 1986, your first performance with Michigan State, going all the way up to this one near 40 years later.
Yeah, it's an amazing event, first of all, that I was totally unaware of as a high school band director in California and growing up playing in college and high school. For some reason, the truth didn't get all the way out to the West Coast on this. So I didn't become aware of Midwest until I went to work at the University of Wisconsin with Bob Reynolds as an assistant there, uh, my second college job. And then, of course, everybody in the Midwest was saying, "What do you mean you don't know about the Midwest?" And of course, we're all going. And it was fun in those days because we could take the train from Madison all the way to Chicago. It didn't matter if it snowed or whatever happened. We could get back, and it was a nice. It was just a nice chance to visit with colleagues and be involved with an incredible professional meeting. That provided so many opportunities for growth. The who's who of our world, our wind band world. In the old days, you'd get on the elevator at at the Hilton, and you start reading name tags, and you get really nervous. You could be standing next to Frank Erickson or Ron Nelson or Martin Mailman or you name it. John Painter. I mean, there were so many people who were part of our folklore, so to speak, even. And I was going a lot in those days as a participant um, uh, and just taking advantage of all the different things that were there for me. It was interesting, and he was absolutely right. Bob Reynolds would say to those of us at Wisconsin who were going, fellow faculty members, he said, "Don't be offended, but I'm not going to talk to any of you. I see you all the time." It kind of reminding us that this was an opportunity to catch up with other colleagues that we never have a chance to see except once a year. So I took advantage of that opportunity and can remember so many great conversations with various people, Frederick Fennell and Bill Ravelli, and it goes on and on. All the people that I grew up admiring so much. So
Well, I want to kind of zero in on this first performance 40 years ago, 1986 with Michigan State. And in my research for this conversation, I have come to find out it was part of this series of events called the Midnight Special.
right,
You had to
right.
go to the Hilton for the extra room. And my understanding was someone in the Big Ten was selected to do this performance, and you had to do it with the composer at midnight. So you did Winds of Nagal at 12 p.m., and you had to interview Michael Kograss at the same time. I'll tell you, things have changed. They're trying to shut the Hilton bar down at midnight these days, let alone do a performance. So, were you nervous for this first one? I would be.
How it came to pass that we were going is I was at a meeting of the Big Ten band directors, and uh, the year before, or maybe it was halfway through the year, and John Painter was president of the organization at that time, and he said, "Well, the Big Ten is going to sponsor this event, this midnight session, which, by the way, happened at 11:30." I have
Well,
nothing.
thank God.
Yeah, it was set up for 11:30, and this was the first time this session was going to happen. And they had already chosen Michael, and Winds of Nagual was hot off the press. It had been written for New England Conservatory for Frank Battisti's group, and I think it had had one performance, maybe one or two, but it was very new, and there was lots of interest in it. So um, I volunteered, and I thought the whole room would volunteer, and everybody else just looked at me like I was crazy. And it was also slated because of that, I think. I don't know how the board was thinking for sure, but because of that, we also got to do a concert at Midwest. And I think it was the first college band besides Vandercook College to ever play at Midwest. They had Vanderhook had a long time relationship with Midwest and did reading sessions and things. But in terms of any other college band coming from the outside, that was the first one. So we did two shows. We did the 8 o'clock concert with the Wind Ensemble and Symphonic Band at Michigan State. Then we came back at 11:30 and played just the Cold Grass. And the only other thing about that, because I recently did a performance of Winds of Nagual again, and Michael, I asked him, about this lecture and about him being there. I said, I know they'd like to have you talk about the piece. And he said, well, I don't really want to lecture about the piece, but I have an introduction I'd like to do. So we have a tape of that. And I've shared it now with several different groups playing Winds of Nagual. And when we did it here just recently, I played him giving the talk at Midwest, and he had it set up pretty dramatically. He wanted to finish with his talk and say, "Look to the west and see the sun," or something like that. And then we were to start. No applause for him. No, and it was really very dramatic. And it's a brilliant talk that he gave. And I keep getting requests to share it, and I'm happy to anytime we have that tape. But afterwards, he answered questions and talked a little bit, but he was more about letting the music speak for itself, and that led to other uh, years where I think they had Karel Husa come one year and do a similar thing with another group, talking about maybe it was Prague or Apotheosis, probably Prague, and other composers. So it was kind of a new way to have composers be involved, and it was kind of late. I don't know why they thought about that. There was some concern that this might be too avant-garde for the people who would normally be there. So this would give them a good, people who didn't want to come would have other things to do. And but we still had a good turnout, and it was a really great experience for us. For
Well,
my
40 years later, it's still all about the marketing, I can tell you. So I
Yeah,
kind of understand a little bit. Okay, so zooming ahead now to today, you're with a different green school or the Mean Green. And when we think about what you're going to perform, I think you've been associated with championing new composers, programming new works, kind of advancing the medium. For this particular performance, how do you go about balancing your desire for innovation and artistry with putting together a program that has some element of accessibility to it for all the attendees that are going to come and hear this concert?
that's a real good question, and it's on your mind, my mind constantly, and anybody's mind when they're designing a program for Midwest. Um, I suppose uh, I suppose that we have to be true to ourselves, as well as true to the college band medium, as well as playing things maybe not that are things that can be played by uh, younger players, but that are there to enrich the lives of their teachers. And that's something that I always keep in mind, the idea that we are a real organization in the music world. We're not just a music education organization, but wind bands are prevalent throughout the world at the highest levels of performance. And so by nature, we probably will play things that are more difficult, but at the same time, we're playing things that have been written for service bands or written for college bands, and even some have been commissioned by high school bands. There's a little bit of everything in there. And trying to balance the amount of sound with the amount of, or the amount of sound and excitement in pieces with the lyrical side of what a wind band can do is also important to me in this. And uh, I have picked I have picked pieces for this program that are by my friends, and by people I just respect so much, and over a kind of a broad period. And because of that, I think there's enough variety there. And some of the pieces I'm picking have been played by public school bands, good high school bands, great high school bands like we see at Midwest. One Cindy McTee's piece was even written for the Honor Band of America. It was written for high school players. So, um, uh, but there's also some music that challenges us, and that was written for groups, that are uh, full of virtuosos uh, in today's world that we're going to try and bring to the group, to the teachers as well, and to the people at the concert.
And
We
kind
weren't
oh,
held
go
to the
ahead, go ahead.
same, I was just going to say, we weren't held to the same, nor are the service bands. When they perform, we're not held to the same regulations of you must play a grade 3 piece, you must play a grade 2 piece. And I always think about, I've done my fair share of grade 2 and 3 music. I probably know more grade 2 and 3 music than any band director in the world, only because of the teaching music through performance in band series and all the recordings we did, which was our contribution to that side of the repertoire, and very important to us that we did that. Um, but I think that gives me some street cred a little bit in terms of not blowing off, uh, you know, the struggling public school teachers, of which I was one at one point when I started my career.
Well, I think you have plenty of street cred, as the kids say. But kind of looking big picture, you've been at this for a long time, and I think everyone expects this performance to sound really good. And I was wondering if you could speak to the responsibility and the sometimes effort that one has to put into maintaining a high artistic standard over such a long period of time. It's probably easier to put on one good concert than 40 years worth. So, what has been your experience with having to kind of maintain that artistic standard for such a long period of time so successfully?
Well, it's the students who maintain that standard. I'm amazed by the great college bands and high school bands in America and around the world. But it's the consistency in our work here is really to the credit of our faculty and our students and their development that takes place here, and their commitment to excellence. I mean, they are so serious about what they're doing. Um, this this eighth note here at measure 175. Are you sure it's correct? I mean, they come after rehearsal. They're listening that deep. And you go, oh yeah, oh you're right. No, it isn't. It's one of those. But that's part of it. Part of it is just uh, the way I think about it is that every concert is a CBDNA, a Midwest WASB concert. Every concert we try to play, or we try to meet the standards of a national convention or international convention. And we fall short sometimes, but there's a real commitment to the music and to the composers who are working so hard on our behalf, who are writing these unbelievably great pieces. And it's just always um, an honor to work with these folks who give you a reason to get up in the morning, you know. And I think our players enjoy working with composers and meeting them, and staying in the foreground uh, uh, of what's going on currently, but also maybe keeping a tradition alive. All of that's part of their uh, education and their work. And it's like for Midwest. One of our principal flutists won an Air Force job yesterday. Not back yet, so we're all really nervous. Are we going to have her for Midwest? Where's she going? When does she have to leave? And that's always going on around here. That there a lot of students are really looking ahead to their career, trying to play in a professional band setting, and so they take it seriously. They play in the orchestra as well. They play chamber music, and on and on. But they take the band very seriously here at North Texas, and that's a really great uh, position to be in if you're standing up in front of them.
Yeah, and as a former member of the group, it was all very inspiring just to have the new pieces, like, kinda all the time, access to the composers, and I do recall sometimes there would be, an errata epidemic. Someone would
Yeah,
discover a
right,
wrong note, and then all of a sudden everybody thinks they have one too, so I
right.
do remember
That's
that
that too.
fondly. Okay, so before we bring on one of the composers of music from your program, I do have one last question just for you and I. And it's to me, it's basically like, you are revered in this space. You really have nothing to prove as far as, where you are in your stage of your career. What has been your goal with this particular performance, and maybe what responsibility do you feel leading the group at this stage of your career?
That's a good point. Um, I just want to do my best work as in any way that I can, and and be as well informed as I can be about the music, and stay open to the composer's uh, recommendations and ideas. And we do a lot of exchanging of rehearsal tapes once we get rolling, even though they can't be here. Although one of the pieces we're playing is by Mike Doherty, and he happened to be in Texas this week, so he was here yesterday at our rehearsal, and he's going to be here tomorrow at our concert because we're playing the entire piece that we're extracting one movement from Midwest. Uh, and the chance, to work with living musicians is just amazing to me. I was asked once, "What kind of music do you play at the coffee shop? What kind of music do you play?" They know I'm a conductor, and I've been trying to come up with a definition. And I think because you say classical music, and they think automatically a string orchestra or chamber music, and I play wind music of the living is kind of what I say to people, and I call it concert music of the living. In other words, the chance to work with people like James Stephenson and James David. Your name has to be James, actually, to be on this program.
Well, what a perfect transition. Speaking of music of the living, please welcome James Stevenson. Hi, Jim. How are you? Welcome.
Hey, good to see you, Sean. Hi, Gene. How you doing?
Good to see you.
Great
We're
to
just
see you.
talking about this program, and Eugene's talking about how he likes to play music of the living, advance the medium, and advance the artistry. And I know on this program we have your piece Declaration. And Jim, I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about how the piece came to be. I know it was affiliated with ABA and some military groups, and how you went, the inspiration for the piece, perhaps, just to get us started.
Yeah, sure. First of all, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you sound
Microphone
great.
work? Great. Okay. Yeah, I remember I was visiting with Jason Fettig, who we all know is the former director of the Marine Band. Probably, I think he was actually transitioning out at that point, but he said, "Hey, we're going to feature a work of yours at the next ABA in Washington, D.C., and it's going to be the joint military bands. And, would you like to write a piece?" And of course, I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, I'm in." And we had a hard time coming up with a title. A lot of times you have to come up with the title before you actually write the piece, which is kind of bizarre as a composer. But at one point, Jason actually came up with Declaration, and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I think I can do something with that." And then when it got time to write the piece, I started thinking Declaration of Independence and what that means for our country. And so this idea came to me to obviously write something that's very American sounding and celebratory and worthy of people that were going to be playing it. I knew I had a good band that was going to be playing it. And kind of like a minute into the piece, I wrote a tone row just for the heck of it. It's like, wait a minute, the whole piece would kind of be based on 12 notes of a scale. All notes are equal, like the Declaration of Independence. You know, all people are created equal. And so the process of writing was literally to go through all those keys in order, using all 12 keys, but to hopefully write a piece where nobody knows we're actually changing keys, and just goes from left to right and has hopefully pretty moments, glorious moments, technical moments, virtuosic moments, the whole bit to show off the band, but also just kind of represent this country at the same time.
Well, it's interesting. I didn't know about the rose, and something that jumps out to me, Eugene, I know the Doll Sinfonietta. Whenever we played it with you, I remember you were all about the different rows in the piece. I guess for Eugene, I know you like a good title as well. As you're coming up with your program for this, do you feel the title is evocative to something you're literally trying to declare with the artistry of the group, or is it an aesthetic declaration, or what is it that drew you to this piece in your selection for the program at Midwest?
Declaration of Independence and the importance of that document to America and to all of us. And there's, I don't want to give away the punchline, but there's a little spot in the piece where James quotes America, and it's so hidden, it's so beautifully hidden. It just a tuba piccolo moment, that in a transition, but it causes one to think about our country and about the hopes for our country and those kinds of things. And then, of course, the anniversary of the Declaration of the Independence as well. So I'm thinking of it more that way. We are opening the concert with it, and you are kind of, when you go into a situation like this, you want to play something that gets everybody's attention, that kind of, and also establishes your credibility about even being there. So it's the perfect piece for that too. And the row, it's funny, you don't think 12 tone ever in this piece, but it's there, and he hides it sometimes in the basso continuo. It's hidden kind of, and you almost hear it more as sometimes as a Baroque bass line. It's just so clever the way it is. It's not like we think of 12 tone clashing against each other, and you feel key centers, and you feel arrivals and harmonic arrivals as big moments, and but it's so skillfully done. It's really amazing.
And I know a big kind of piece of your mission, Eugene, is to collaborate with living composers. I'm wondering, maybe Jim, you could talk to us about how did you first come to work with Eugene Corporon in this capacity, and how has the relationship grown or matured over the years with other performances?
Well, I don't remember exactly the first piece, but Gene has been so good about just doing my music. I got to say, I think he's done probably 7 or 8 pieces, maybe something like that. You've recorded several of them, the triple trombone concerto, the piece with Ryan, my second symphony. I mean, you've done a lot of my music, and I've always been grateful for that, of course, because the band is so good. Gene is great. It's always such a wonderful representation of what I'm trying to put out there as a composer. So it's kind of a composer's dream to have our notes getting played so well. So I can't, if this is an opportunity for me to thank Gene, I'll just do that right now. But I've been very, and you just talked about that one section, that I kind of hid in there, and I heard one of the rehearsals, and not only that, but he actually made it better. He said, well, why don't we add some bells to this? And it actually brings out the tune a little bit even better. So now I got to go back and edit and reprint the whole piece, put his name on it, the whole bit. Just, but no, it's been great. I've appreciated it a lot.
So I should ask at this point. Um, I've done these composers collections for the last uh, 30 years or so, and we're up to 26 different composers that we put out a. We used to put out a CD. Of course, that's gone now. So we just post, and the next person on my list is this gentleman right here, and all the pieces you just mentioned would be on that disc, including uh, the latest. Or the piece we're about to play, but the trombone piece, um, the symphony, um, and, and so I'll be sending you a list and seeing if you think that's okay, and if it is, I'll send you a tape of how we put it together.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Hopefully that's okay with you, Jim.
Oh,
But Eugene, is there a particular collaboration that stands out to you aside from this opening Midwest with Declaration? Anything else in Jim's catalog that sticks out
Oh
to you as a particularly memorable collaboration?
yeah, I have trouble talking about it. Um, with Ryan, uh, one of the world's great trumpet players, and we were just fortunate to get to play his piece, James' piece, with him that was written for Ryan at uh, the International Trumpet Guild meeting. He was a guest artist, and he was not particularly well then. He was in chemotherapy in between rehearsals and things, and he agreed to come and do it. And then I thought, gosh, I wish we could record this. So I asked him if he would come back a week later and record it with us. He said, sure. Again, chemotherapy on Friday and the recording session on Saturday. And he and I had met on a chamber concert panel for NASM. Turns out his dad followed me at the high school I taught at, and he was a graduate of Mount McGill High School maybe 10, 15 years after I left there. And his dad was a tremendous California band director. And he brought that up to me, and I was just shocked. I went, "No, you're not that, you're not that guy." But it was just that was I think one of the most meaningful things I've ever done in my life to have that opportunity. And the performance is stunning. How he played and did what he did is just a miracle.
And there he was in front of trumpet players who were, hanging on every note, and they knew the story. And, it was just, I'll never forget coming out, because I was there and I came out for the bow and we hugged, and, I'm looking out in the audience, looking at you. I'm just thinking, I can't believe this even happened. It was so meaningful and so special, as you were saying. It sticks with me as well.
And looking ahead to, oh, go ahead, Eugene.
No, I'm good.
Oh, well, looking ahead to this, back to kind of declaration and this performance in particular, I know, Jim, you were saying at first this was written for military performers. And one of the things Eugene was saying before you came on was the way that he's been able to maintain a high level of artistic artistry has been the performers in the group, in the ensembles at UNT. So, and as an alumni, you have to answer this nicely. But in hearing these recordings with the group, which was originally written for military players, and now you're getting this kind of feedback loop from the North Texas Wind Symphony, how has that process maybe changed the way you've heard the piece, or changed the way you think about the piece, or maybe possibly changed the way you'll think about writing music for this group going forward if you have the opportunity to do so?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm stunned at what they can do. I'm not going to say kids, because I know they're young adults, but I remember being in college, and I don't think I could have played some of this music that I've even been writing. And I've been doing it for 15 years, but I still sort of consider myself relatively new to the wind ensemble world, and I just continue to be stunned when I go visit or when I hear recordings at what they can do, and it gives me confidence to write what I hear in my head. It's such a privilege and a pleasure to do that, and then to hear it played so well. I mean, it's like I said earlier, it really is a composer's dream. And I don't write music to try to make it hard on purpose. I just write what I think the moment needs, and sometimes it happens to be virtuosic. Other times I try to write just beautiful music, but they do it splendidly.
I think that's a really important point, because I got involved in college teaching at a time when the focus, thanks to people like Robert Reynolds and Frank Battisti and Donald Hunsberger and Frederick Fennell, was on trying to create a professional repertoire for the wind band, and to build on top of the Goldman Band and the Sousa Band and the great university bands, Hinesley and Harding and Ravelli, and I mean, it goes on and on. This legacy that they pushed forward, and the very hope was the composers would someday feel like they could write just whatever they wanted to write for the ensemble, and the whole Eastman Wind Ensemble movement that Fred Fennell started, which was to go to composers and kind of open the door and say, "You write what you want to write, and we'll play." And you instrument it the way you want to instrument it. If you want four bassoons, we'll find them. If you want a contrabassoon, we'll figure it out. Um, and so I think we've really advanced to a point, thanks to all the people who came before us and worked on it, and all the great composers of the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s who took us on, and who began to write more specifically for maybe a more experienced kind of group. And of course, the service bands have led us that way too. So many great commissions. So
Yes, I remember being in the group with you, and you were like, bring me four bassoons, bring me 8 harps and 4 pianos, and we'll do it, right? So there's nothing, I think, that would stop you personally, from trying to advance the art form.
they got mad at me here at the cartage part of the building. How many grand pianos do we have to move over there? Yeah.
Well, so we're gonna welcome a different composer in a second here, but I'm grateful, Jim, for you coming on, speaking with us, and I think Declaration is one of your best pieces, and I'm hopeful that it gets a wonderful ovation at the performance, and surely you'll get a very nice bow from Eugene now that we've reminded him here in this space. So thank you again for coming on, and thanks for writing a great piece, Jim.
My pleasure. And if people don't like it, it won't be their fault. It'll be my fault because they're going to sound great. So,
Good to see you, Jim.
yeah, great to see you, Gene. I look forward to seeing you in person.
Okay, so we're back with composer Paul Dooley and conductor Andrew Traxel, director of the UNT Wind Orchestra. And on this program at the Midwest Clinic, Andrew is going to be conducting Paul's new piece, Fantasy of Colors. And Paul, I know this piece is inspired both by the fantasia of the Baroque and classical era, as well as some artwork. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what drew you to those sources of inspiration and how you ultimately worked them into the piece.
Great, yeah, happy to be here and thrilled for this upcoming performance at Midwest. And I was thinking about it, a lot of my music from the past 10 years has been inspired by artwork. I'm thinking manifestos and masks of machines and yellow, red, blue. And it's not that when I'm researching beforehand for these pieces that I'm actively trying to find artwork like that's my shtick. It's just that after lots of research, I go out in many directions. I'm always just drawn back towards artwork. And in this piece, I found some Baroque artwork that I've never really focused on Baroque artwork in particular, and I thought that'd be interesting. And also just my love of Baroque music, particularly the counterpoint. I feel like in our day and age, counterpoint is kind of a second-class citizen sometimes in contemporary music, and that's one direction I really push myself very hard to focus on counterpoint, and that really started with Masks and Machines. I kind of had the cheat code on Masks and Machines. I used the Stravinsky composing method, like from Puccinella, where you take previously written public domain music and you process it and change it. And I worked with Baroque music, and it became something very different, but it was kind of a derivative of something that had already been written. And so over the past 10 years, I feel like my counterpoint chops have come a long way. And in this piece, I really challenged myself to, particularly in this one middle section of the piece, which is a kind of an intense fugato, to really write something from scratch. So that was kind of a challenge. And every piece I really like challenging myself. So just all of my interest, artwork, counterpoint, kind of came together in this short piece. It's just, I don't know, 6.5, 7 minutes, probably like a concert opener or closer, and it should be a lot of fun.
Paul, I honestly think you killed it in this piece. This is like one of your best pieces, in my opinion. But Andrew, with you conducting this piece, you have the task of kind of having to bring these abstract concepts, the fantasy of colors, kind of out in your interpretation. So I'm wondering what has been your process and your experience kind of on the interpretive side of this, and also you're kind of in the unique situation of kind of working with Eugene, I imagine, kind of in the rehearsal room. So what has also been your experience kind of having a co-producer of sorts in your interpretation of Paul's Fantasy of Colors?
Yeah. Oh, those are great questions. Well, first of all, I've had the great privilege of conducting Paul's music in the past, and every time that I engage in his music, and I think we all find this to be true, is that there is such a level of detail that it makes you, as you study it, it makes you realize that there's no detail that's not important, that everything is very thoughtfully constructed, put together, conceived, and then realized. And so as a conductor, when I sit down and look at one of Paul's scores, first of all, there's just an ease of interaction as the studier of the music and the one who didn't write it, and just trying to understand what's going on. It's just so well constructed that it's really fun to dive into the music and try to figure out what's going on, and also just to try to observe and imagine the kind of craft work that went into it. So like just, even from the first measure of what the timpani plays to really that kind of spins out the material for the rest of the piece. And just the way Paul just talked about counterpoint is just so evident even from the third and fourth measure, just the way that all the parts are interacting and talking to each other, and then expanding on that. So as a conductor, to dive into it is a process of discovery, and then our job is to turn that around and present that to the students, to the players as well, to help them try to understand what's going on in the music, what Paul's up to, and what he's trying to express through his just exquisite craftsmanship, and that's always super exciting. So to discover things through the process of studying, and then to be able to share that with the students is that's kind of it. That's like the main motivation is to do that, and then they so obviously enjoy playing the piece, like from the get-go, not just the timpanist, but everybody is just loving studying the piece, and they just sound so great that it's just fun to unlock that over the course of the rehearsal process. The second question, having my colleague and friend and teacher Eugene in the room is, we all pinch ourselves to be able to be in that space together and collaborating, to be able to work with the group that he's been associated with now for 30 years, and all of the recordings and all the performances. It's such a wealth of knowledge about, not just about music, but about just even rehearsing and articulation and scoring, and just ideas that he is more than happy to, and we are more than happy to have him sitting at the table, piping up and saying, in measure 34, what do you think about this, or what do you think about the release on this? And it's a collaborative process. It never feels like that one person is in the room controlling the whole process, but that we're just all collaborating together to try to realize the best possible version of Paul's music that we can.
And Paul, for you, you were reminding me last week that in 2015, the UNT Wind Symphony played Masks and Machines, and then shortly thereafter, it won the Ravelli like 10 minutes before or 10 minutes after. Maybe that's a good sign for this piece. But in talking with Eugene, he was kind of reflecting a lot on all the different, his time at Midwest over the past 40 years and how much it's changed and stuff. For you, Paul, I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to your experience as a composer of wind music going back to 2015 when you had that incredible moment and leading up to this performance coming up here in a month or so. How has your writing changed? How has your process developed or changed? And what's been your experience at Midwest over the past 10 or so years?
Sure. Well, I remember when I got to University of Michigan in 2007, my first semester here, I was, studying with Michael Doherty, who's still a mentor and a friend. But I was writing a piano trio, and I was a high school band student. I had never really thought about writing. I had never really thought about writing band music, and Michael Doherty was the first person to really encourage me to do that. Sometimes it just takes someone to say, "Hey, you should do that." And it's like, "Oh yeah, I should." But then he also mentioned, there's this clinic in Chicago. I was like, "What's that?" Midwest, and he said, "It's a big thing." I had never heard of it, coming from California, and being 22 years old or something. But I went and was just like, wow, this is a whole world here. And I've been going, not every year, but most years, particularly in the past 10 years, I've been going almost every year. And just the synergy at Midwest and the people I've met, like I say, like at least half of my commissions have just kind of been organized or spearheaded at Midwest, just happenstance over coffee or something. Nothing I've really even been planning, just things tend to happen there. So that's a really cool thing. I was sort of just a young composer drifting around at Midwest for, out of several or many years. And then, finally, some bands started playing my music, and now, I think my music's played, fairly often at Midwest. But I think, Point Blank was my first, breakout piece that was played at Midwest. And then the next piece was Masks and Machines, and I really went a different direction with that piece. I had grown a lot, and writing your first, trying to write another really good piece after your first big success is hard, because you just want to like copy the formula right from your successful piece. So that was a big deal. And then, UNT bringing it to Midwest in 2015 was really big, and a lot of people heard it, and it really got out there. Now, in the past 10 years, yeah, I mean, I really, like I said, I try to push myself and do something different with every piece. So I think, again, counterpoint has been a big focus in the past 10 years, and simplification. It's like most composers, your earlier pieces are a little more raw. You know, The Rite of Spring, I think, is more raw and a little crazier than Stravinsky's later pieces. And you look at the early pieces of Prokofiev, he's another one of my idols. His like young pieces are just almost like The Rite of Spring. They're just completely out there. And by the end of his career, he was writing Peter and the Wolf, right? So I think my music has gotten tighter and more organized and easier to play too, hopefully without sacrificing the quality of the music. So those are all things I really think about a lot, and it's been like a 10-year process to kind of unlock that. Because if you just try to do it, it just doesn't work. If you say I'm going to write a grade 3 piece now, I'm going to just put on my grade 3 hat and do it. At least for me, it doesn't really work. I've had to kind of like morph into having enough experience to do those type of things. And I don't know if Andy agrees, but hopefully I think Fantasy of Colors is probably like a grade 4. I feel like good high schools could play the piece, but there's a lot of detail that college groups can really bring out as well. So this is a piece that I do not think I could have written 10 years ago. That's for sure.
And I guess, Andrew, for you, my question was, when you kind of step back and take a 30,000-foot view at the whole kind of body of literature of both Paul's catalog and wind music in general, this piece being Baroque inspired, like where do you see it kind of fitting into the kind of availability of music in that vein? For example, I know when I was first in the group, I think the first thing I ever played was a Bach transcription of a fugue or something with Eugene. So where do you see this particular piece maybe fitting in the larger kind of canon of Baroque inspired works and transcriptions for band? And then how do you see Paul's whole body of work kind of existing in the wind band space? I know you guys have done a composer collection album on him, and he has a huge kind of body of work out there.
Yeah, well, it's a great question, and I love the sort of the full circle aspect of the fact that Masks and Machines was played 10 years ago, and it's now the 10th anniversary. In fact, not by design, but just behind me on my coffee table, I have the 10th anniversary score that Paul sent, which we were really grateful for. And to be able to then share, I think when you go to a thing like Midwest, it's such an important stage for the industry, for our directors and conductors and students to be at and to be exposed to that the programming is so important, because you want it to be something that the audience is going to enjoy, but also that the players are going to enjoy, and also that it makes a statement about where we are in the lineage of wind band. Where are we in the repertoire? And I think Eugene would not disagree with the statement. Is that, in fact, he's probably even said it, is the state of wind band repertoire is very healthy. It's very strong, and it just keeps getting better and better. And it's because of the work of composers like Paul, who are giving us music that is so artistically, again, just detailed, but also just the amount of care and artistry that is packed into every moment of his music is, I mean, just such an honor to be able to try to realize it. But it's exciting. It's exciting to hear the performances, and then to also try to discern, unlock the secrets in the score, and then try to bring that to life with an ensemble. It's what keeps us going. I mean, it's what keeps us motivated to keep doing this art form. Sorry, the question you asked about Baroque music is a great one, because you're right. There's a great tradition. While there's not like a whole lot of composers who wrote original Baroque music. There are several, of course, and Handel is one of them. But it translates really, really well to the wind band, especially in some of the music that was written for organ. Of course, the organ transcriptions of Bach and his contemporaries work great for the wind band. Why? Because the wind band is an organ. The organ is a wind band, basically, and so that translates really, really well. But a lot of composers have taken that as inspiration. Ron Nelson is another one who took music from other eras, and not just Baroque, but medieval, Baroque, and so on, and then put their own signature. They took that material and then put their own signature on it. And so that's one example. The Bach transcriptions, like before. There's just a lot. There's a lot of great Renaissance music that translates well. There's a lot of great Baroque music, and there's other composers like David Biedenbender, who just wrote a piece called Enigma recently, and that takes inspiration from Bach as well. But what I love about those pieces is that they're not trying to be Baroque. They're not trying to just be a piece that if you were in 1600 to 1750, that would sound very familiar, and everybody would be able to understand the syntax of the music. But instead, and I don't want to speak for Paul, but I feel like I feel like I know him and I know his music, and what it's trying to do by studying it. And I'm glad he's here to correct me if I'm wrong about this. But what I love about it is that he's taking material that sounds like it could have been generated in the Baroque, but then he makes it very much of the now, and he makes it still authentic to his language and to where we are in music, Western music at the moment. And and so it sounds, you wouldn't have to have an appreciation for Baroque music to enjoy this piece, or to understand the harmonic language, or to understand the scoring. It's not an entry or a gateway to that. It's just material that he's using as inspiration and building on it. And Baroque artwork is very appropriate because it's so ornate and so detailed. And like I kind of mentioned earlier, it's exciting to study Paul's music because of that level of detail. You know that everything is there for a reason. Everything's there. It has a purpose, and so we're all trying to, as performers and interpreters, we're trying to realize that ornamentation and the ornateness of this architecture that he's built. So that for me, that's kind of where that connection is, and it's a wealth of source material and inspiration. But then Paul, like a lot of other great composers too, like Ron Nelson, etc., takes that and then makes that his own and makes it modern.
And kind of in closing for you both, we each kind of are playing like a very limited role in this whole thing, right? We're just one publisher kind of in a sea of many. Paul, you're one composer on this program. Andrew, I'm not sure if you're conducting more than one piece on this program, but we're all kind of here in a limited role for this event. And I'm kind of wondering for each of you, what is maybe just like one thing that you're hoping the audience or the players or the attendees take away from hearing this piece in particular? And maybe Paul, I'll start with you.
Well, I think as a composer, at least the way I work, is kind of alluding to what Andy sort of talked about. It's just hearing how the ideas unfold and the craft that has gone into it, and then above all, just really thinking it's a cool piece. I heard the UNT performance. They're doing a pre-performance. They're doing a couple of them. I heard one last week, and it's really rocking. It's really dance-like. It has a really cool kind of. It's like a stately dance, and so that's just really cool to hear that come out, and that's exactly what I was thinking when I was writing the piece. So I hope that comes across.
No, I think I do think the audience is going to just really, again, no matter from where they're coming, whether it's a middle school band student who's there with their band, or it's another composer in the audience, and everything in between, composers and teachers and high school students and publishers, is that they can get to the piece, they can listen to it, and they can enjoy it on whatever level that they're coming from, just because it's a great piece. It's an enjoyable piece of music to listen to, and then depending on your level of listening, the kind of listening you're doing inside of it, I think it just multiplies the enjoyability of it, just because of there's all these little details that start to pop out, and Paul will take something and he'll just transform it just slightly, but enough that it sounds familiar yet it's a little different. And that's just, I always love kind of finding those moments and trying to bring those out. But the performance of the piece by the North Texas Wind Symphony will be just a lot of fun. It's brilliant. They're enjoying playing it, and I think that enthusiasm comes through in their performance.
Okay, well, I'm definitely looking forward to it, and hopefully everyone who watches this is getting excited about it. But thank you guys both so much for coming on, talking about the piece, and I look forward to seeing you both in about a month. Okay. All right. So we are back with composer James David, and we're talking about, in particular, Jim's new piece, Pulsing Onward, that Eugene's going to play with the North Texas Wind Symphony here at Midwest. And Eugene, for you, my question is kind of similar to Jim Stephenson. You've been championing James David's music for some time, and I think, James is a great writer. I'm wondering, in your opinion, what is it about his music that initially piqued your interest? And what is it about his writing that has kept you coming back to him in terms of programming?
That's an easy question. First and foremost, the integrity in the writing, the honesty in the writing. He's a composer who creates organic unity within the piece. Things make sense. There's clarity. It's possible to get clarity out of the piece because of the way it's on the page. So it's very clear notation. There's an understanding there of the medium and of what we can do, and things lay well for the players. It's exciting music. It's thoughtful music. It's a nice balance between strength and repose. Lyrical things appear in the pieces that help balance out the excitement that's there as well. The big moments are incredibly emotional. In many of the pieces, I'm thinking of Ghosts, especially of the old year, but in all the pieces. And the proportions are terrific in the way the music is on the page and the story that the music tells.
And Jim, Eugene has performed your music in many different occasions, different conferences, different recordings. Is there a certain collaboration that sticks out to you between you and him?
Oh man, that's hard to immediately sort of respond after all of that. Thank you so much. Um, I think one that really stands out to me was Ghost of the Old Year at TMEA that time. The very first time I heard it, just a few months earlier, it was at UNT and at the hall there. And that was a tremendous performance. But then in just the energy at TMEA with a band that was about twice as big as the one that I had heard before, just absolutely electric. Yeah, just incredible moment. Something that I never would have imagined getting the chance to do. So yeah, that one definitely stands out. And just recently, the chance to sit and hear the Wind Symphony and sit next to Frank DeKelly and Michael Dougherty and hear their music and be on that same program was just absolutely amazing. So yeah, there's so many wonderful chances. I just feel so honored and grateful to get every opportunity to work with Eugene and the Wind Symphony.
And Jim, for you, I know it's a little bit of a full circle moment because you were explaining to me that your first Midwest performance was 10 years ago. Gary Gilroy was conducting Two Lane Blacktop, and now this piece, Pulsing Onward, was written for Gary Gilroy. What has been your experience over the past 10 years with Midwest, maybe compared to Eugene's, who was, explained to us his dates back 40 or 50 years? So what's been your past decade at Midwest like?
Yeah, I think it's been incredible. That first time with Gary's group was completely out of the blue. I really just sort of contacted him and just sort of see if he might be interested in doing a piece. And that completely changed my whole perspective about what Midwest means. I had never been, even as a student or in any sort of capacity before that moment. But to see it sort of up there on that stage was really amazing. And every year since then, it's just remarkable to me how much of it just kind of feels like a homecoming every year. Just kind of meeting some of the same people, and then meeting their friends, and how the network of students kind of just continues to grow over the years. It's just something that's truly remarkable. the world of band seems gigantic, at times, but it really isn't. It's really a small place, and it's really a very welcoming place. And I feel like Midwest is always kind of the home, the sort of nexus of the entire performance year for us. So I just every time I get a chance to go back, I'm always grateful, and definitely grateful this year to be on such a really special performance.
And Jim, I was so happy for you at Midwest that one year when Flying Jules won Reveille. I was just like, yes, this is Jim's like big breakthrough. Like, let's go. Okay, so Eugene, for you, this piece, Pulsing Onward, it's subtitled A California Pastoral, and you have deep ties to California. You went to school there, you taught there. What are some of the orchestration, the voicing, the scoring choices in Jim's writing in this piece that you feel are maybe evocative of California or speak to it as the authority on California between the three of us here?
Right. I recently moved back to California. Actually, not so recently, about 5 years now. My home is in California, and I'm living in a palatial Airbnb here in Denton, Texas. And I get to go home around Christmas time, and I go home for the summer. So I'm living in the mountains now. Bear Valley Springs, up in the Tehachapi Mountains. And it's the spaciousness of that vista. When you sit there in the morning with a cup of coffee in your hand and realize you're in California, first of all. I mean, there's the coast, there's the mountains, there's the deserts. I mean, there's so much going on there. I can be in the mountains looking at snow and be an hour and a half from the Mojave Desert or from Edwards Air Force Base, or I mean, it's amazing the vastness of the state, and I think that comes out in James' music. I think I wish we haven't started working on it yet. So I've only been looking at it and imagining it, and it hasn't come alive yet here for us. I mean, I've heard tape and so on, but we start work on it next week, and I can't wait because it's another unique voice in our program that I think is going to really bring balance to the program. And having grown up and gone to school in California, I moved there when I was 3 from Connecticut, but I spent most of my life as a youngster there. Didn't leave the state till I was about 24, and then I hadn't been back until just recently. So, but I have a real fondness for the state and for all the experiences I had in the state. I'm really grateful for my education, which happened completely in California, both the Cal public schools and Cal State Long Beach, and then Claremont Graduate University, and my first jobs were there, and there were folks who mentored me there. So I have a connection to the whole idea of it, and anything that has the title California in it, I'm all over. I love that. But I think this is a special. It captures for me a little bit of the vastness of the state, the diversity of topography. I think all that shows up in the piece, and then of course James' language is so fantastic. I mean, the imprint of his musical character is in every one of his pieces I've ever done. I mean, it's like with any great composer, you hear 2 notes of Copland, oh, that's Copland. You hear 3 notes of somebody else, oh, and this piece is right at the roots of the kinds of music he writes, I think. Very exciting. And that it's for Gary Gilroy, who I knew in California a little bit. It's kind of nice to have that connection too.
And Jim, do you want to expound at all on your voicings or your orchestrations around the California topic, aside from the lovely description from Eugene here?
Sure. Yeah, the piece, tried to capture a lot, partly because of where Gary's located in Fresno, kind of right in the center of the state. And they're close to both the mountains and the Sierras, as well as on the coast there. So I was trying to really capture as much of that as I could. Of course, I love the cities in California too, and there's such a unique energy that each of the big cities in California have. And that was kind of the third movement. Trying to balance all of that was really my main goal. And I just thought, well, counterpoint, I need to have lots of counterpoint and just all these things sort of interacting with each other the whole time. So while I was writing the piece, California Counterpoint was the working title that I had for it as a reference to Steve Reich, with New York Counterpoint and Vermont Counterpoint. The thing I didn't know at the time, as I looked up later, is there's actually a piece by Cindy McTee called California Counterpoint that Eugene recorded many years ago. So there's kind of an interesting little UNT connection that it was totally unintentional that kind of came out that way. But yeah, the piece also kind of references a few California composers. The first movement references a little bit of Schoenberg type technique there with your retrogrades and inversions and things like that. And also, of course, John Adams, one of my all-time biggest influences. And of course, he ended up in California. A lot of his music is sort of famously centered around that, including Short Ride in a Fast Machine, probably his most famous orchestral piece. But yeah, it was a real joy writing it. They really wanted something that captured Gary Gilroy's energy, and that's really what I tried to do. He's just an absolutely incredible person that just is completely just a dynamo and just a force of nature. So that was what I was trying to do. Me and sort of my most extroverted sort of style in this piece.
Okay, well, one more question before we wrap it up. And Eugene, I appreciate your valuable time here sitting with us today. But in preparing for this, Jim was explaining to me that your relationship with him actually goes back over 30 years to when Jim was in All-State Band and you were the conductor. And Jim was second chair at the time, not that he's upset about it now, but he was second chair trombone and you were the conductor. And in thinking about that, my question for you is, at this stage of your career, how does it feel to be involved in kind of raising up the next generation of leaders kind of in the wind band space? I understand you weren't Jim's teacher at that time, but former students of yours that have gone on to be in the military groups, former conducting students of yours that have gone on to start their own programs and raise those up kind of in your likeness, and composers even like Jim that you've had a chance to work with for many, many years. How does it feel to kind of see a lot of those relationships kind of, rise up?
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. And that you start to think, the older you get, the more you think about things like that. And I've had a little quote that I've put at the end of all my emails forever, which is maybe live a life worth repeating. And the people you meet and the composers, the players, the graduate students, the all-state banders, the folks you worked with at your first job. I mean, I have people from Mount Miguel High School who stay in touch with me that were students in my first band. All of that is kind of part now of reflecting. And I think the older you get, the more you reflect on the past. And because the future is getting tighter and tighter and smaller in terms of the work you're going to do. And so it's the reward. That's what I think it is. It's the reward of having just had the opportunity to meet people one at a time and work with people one at a time. And in all the genres, players, composers, colleagues, grad students. And I'm just so thrilled. I mean, we're all bouncing off the walls around here that one of our players just won a job. And then we all went, wait a minute, she's in charge of the library. What are we going to do? Everybody's panicked, because these folks are so valuable and so involved with us, all these folks here at the school. And I think it's the reward for what we do. The journey is wonderful. The process is wonderful. But it's the people really that are such a part of remembering, and trying to get some kind of handle on how many people there have been. And that's the thing that's so overwhelming. One of my former grad students is doing a book on the recording projects, and she has a list of everybody who's ever played on a recording at North Texas by instrument. 200 flute players, 100 oboe players. I mean, it's overwhelming how it mounts up over the years. And you you don't keep track while you're doing it, but when you're looking back on it, it's overwhelming to think about how fortunate you've been, to be involved with something that personal. And uh, so a lot of thought process about the past, but how that impacts every day when I go into rehearsal. I'm thinking maybe a little bit more about, how can I help these folks along? What can I do to make this better for them, or to help them reach their goal? That's the key for all of us teaching, I think, is help people get where they want to go.
Well, I think we all look forward to a very rewarding performance. I think I can speak on behalf of the composers, myself, and all the attendees that we hope that this is a very rewarding episode for everyone to watch. And we hope that the room is sold out, standing room only, and they're turning folks away at Midwest. So thank you, Eugene, very much for coming on. Thank you for your time. Thank you, James David, as well. And we'll see you all in Chicago.